The vision that I give for people of being overwhelmed is they're sitting in a cave that's pitch black and they hate it. It's cold, it's wet, it's miserable. They go, I got to get out of here. And they stand up and they hit their head on the roof. And then they reach out and they touch something slimy. And then they're like, they can't see any lights and they're sitting in a puddle of water and they're like, this is miserable. But I don't know how to get out of here. Like, there's no way out. It's pitch black. There's no holes. There's no what. And they go, okay, I'm just gonna have to be here. And so my admonition to them is that do not resign yourself to being overwhelmed the rest of your life. It doesn't have to be like that. There is a way out. And I'm gonna here show you that little corner over there. That's a way out, right?
My guest today is Dr. Gary Sprouse. Known as the Less Stress Doc, he's a retired primary care physician who practiced in Maryland for 38 years. He's committed to helping people improve their mental health and has taken everything he's learned about stress reduction and crafted his first book, Highway to Your Happy Place, a roadmap to less stress. He aims to have everyone living in their happy place. We're recording in November and the holidays are coming up. This is 2025. There's all sorts of reasons, I guess, that folks could be stressful about the world and about their lives and so forth. And you are the Less Stress Doc. So this is what you do, retired primary care provider, I believe, and someone now who shares wisdom about managing stress and guilt and shame and all the things that hold us down in our lives. So I was hoping that you could just share some ideas for listeners, some quick tips or perspectives that can help them stay on track through the holiday season.
Yeah, absolutely. So as this time comes along, here's what I've been finding. Like when I first wrote this book, it was called Highway to Your Happy Place, a roadmap to less stress. And the basic concept of the book is I've had too many patients come to me and say, look, Dr. Sprouse, I know where I don't want to be, but I really have no idea where I do want to be. And I'm like, well, so that's half the problem is knowing where you don't want to be. But the other half, and probably the more important half, is you need to know where you want to be. So I started writing this idea of a happy place, which I found that everybody's happy place is different. So like I would talk to my wife, like, ah, I really like the beach. And my wife's like, no, it's a big kitty litter box. I'm like, all right. So clearly we have different ideas of what a happy place is. But here's what I found is that everybody's happy place has the same rooms. So even though they decorate them differently, and they might have different sizes and different furniture, the rooms are the same. And so when you start identifying the happy place, you go, hey, you know what? That happy place is in my pocket. It's in my purse. I don't have to wait till I'm on vacation or until I'm retired to go, oh, I'm finally in my happy place. No, it can carry you carried along with you. So it's a great place to be. But then patients are like, well, but, and I'm like, but what? And they're like, but there's all these things, all these stresses that are keeping me from getting to that happy place. And I'm like, yeah, okay, well, yeah, so that we need to figure that out, right? So I was looking at things like as a doctor, I would have patients that died, right? I mean, that's what nature of my business. And people would grieve and they'd be sad. And I started looking at it going, wait, what's making these people, why is losing your spouse such a big deal? Like it's like the biggest stress that's out there. And here's what I realized. And I'm not sure what the right word to use. Like I've been using the word ingredients, maybe components, I don't know. But that whole grieving process, the stress that goes along with losing your spouse, isn't just, hey, I lost my spouse and that's crazy stressful. It turns out that what's making it so stressful is like, oh, well, I'm worried about what's going to happen. I'm feeling guilty about what I didn't do. I'm feeling regret that I made this choice. My self-esteem takes a hit because, like, what? Like I don't know what to do with myself now. And the bigger one is that I'm overwhelmed. And I'm like, I can't bring your spouse back, but I can do something about worry and guilt and regret and feeling overwhelmed, right? So it gave me the tools that I can use to then help reduce people's stresses. And not because I can't bring your spouse back, but I can reduce the stresses around that factor. And so then I started looking at my patients, and patients would come in, and some patients say, I worry that I worry too much. I'm like, well, then you probably do, right? But here's what I realized that women tend, and I'm going to generalize here, not that men don't worry, but women worry way more than men do just because of the way our brains are set up. But women think that worry is actually not a bad thing. they might wish they didn't do it as much, but they think it's a good thing because it shows that they care and it shows that you're trying to solve the problem. And so, they're like, well, I wish I could worry less. And what I say to people is, I don't want you to stop worrying, but I want you to worry efficiently. And but what I realized was that other patients would come in and they were like, Dr. Sprouse, I am freaking overwhelmed. And I think we were talking about this before the show. Like, there are a lot of people that just are overwhelmed. They're beyond their coping skills. And they're in this place where, like, I don't even know where to start because I'm so over the top. I don't even know where to get gone. Right. And so then they do these things where they kind of withdraw. They just kind of stay in their house or they do things that get them in trouble. They eat too much or they drink too much or whatever because they're just trying to get that lump of stress down to some place that they can handle. And then I think what you're saying is that with the holidays, that can get exacerbated because now there's a whole new set of stresses that are going on. So I thought that's the person that I need to really help. And it was interesting because I was talking to one of my friends and I said this line. I go, look, I can get rid of half your stress in one line. And she's like, what? And I go, oh, but I may have to give you some information before I say that, right? So I'm going to bring us back to that line. Okay. So the first thing that I found was this idea of getting rid of stress is not the right idea. Like we have incredible psychologists, they have great techniques, we got all these different things that go on to try and get rid of stress. That people have this dream that I'm going to get rid of stress and then I'm going to feel great. And I tell people, look, you're wasting your time and your effort and your energy because literally you cannot get rid of stress. And there's two main reasons. So when I define stress, what I say is that stress is us interacting with our changing environment with our changing body. So as long as you're interacting with your environment and your body's changing, you're going to have stress. So the only time you're not going to have stress is when you die. And like, then your stress goes away, but so does your life, right? So what I find is people put all this energy in to try and get rid of their stress, but it's actually wasted energy because you can't get rid of it. The second reason you can't get rid of stress is because all the skills that you use to be safe and successful are the same skills that make you worry and feel guilt and have regret because the skills that we have side effects. So here's an example. So I have you have the ability to envision the future. Amazing skill, right? Other animals do not have this. My dog does not sit around going, oh my gosh, what's going to happen when I get old? Like it doesn't come up, right? She's just living her life. My 1-year-old grandson, he lives for today. So psychologists say, live for today and you'll be happier. And they're right. You would be happier. My grandson's crazy happy, right? He doesn't sit at the breakfast table and go, Dad, how are we going to pay for college? He just is enjoying banana, right? So what I found is that human adults, you cannot live for today. It's not possible. So stop trying, right? Future is so real to us that it's literally part of our environment. So give up the idea of not having stress. So really then the key is, how do I manage stress effectively so it's not crushing me and then I'm crushing it instead of crushing me, right? So then I said, okay, well, I'm going to take the person who's overwhelmed, and here's how I'm going to describe the overwhelmed person. That if they have one or two problems, they're in control. They got their coping skills, they got some stress reducing techniques, it works fine, right? They got one, two, maybe add a third problem, they're still feeling good, right? But then you add a fourth problem. And they go from being in control to being overwhelmed. And they're like, oh my God. And then when you're overwhelmed, that becomes a fifth problem because now you're going, holy crap, I don't even know what to do here. And here's the other thing that I found. They start beating themselves up for ending up in this position of being overwhelmed. So now they're sitting there, and the vision that I give for people being overwhelmed is they're sitting in a cave that's pitch black. And they hate it. It's cold, it's wet, it's miserable. They go, I got to get out of here. And they stand up and they hit their head on the roof. And then they reach out and they touch something slimy. And then they're like, they can't see any lights and they're sitting in a puddle of water and they're like, this is miserable, but I don't know how to get out of here. Like, there's no way out. It's pitch black. There's no holes. There's no way. And they go, okay, I'm just gonna have to be here. And so my admonition to them is that do not resign yourself to being overwhelmed the rest of your life. It doesn't have to be like that. There is a way out. And I'm going to here show you that little corner over there. That's a way out, right? So keep hope that I can get out, that you can get out of this place. So one of the things that I find is people do this thing that I call lumping. So my friend was doing this morning. She got up this morning, and here's what she does. She goes, oh, I got to go to the hospital and pick up the lady I've been taking care of. I got to get my daughter to school. I got to go over to the office to get this and that. I'm exhausted, right? And I'm like, what do you mean you're exhausted? The day hasn't even started yet, right? And she goes, oh, yeah. And then I forgot I got to do this and do it. So here's what I find. So lumping is when you're listing all the problems you have and you're actually looking for reasons to put on top. Hey, I forgot. I got to put this other thing on top. That is lumping. And the problem with lumping is that's how you get overwhelmed, because now instead of one problem or two problems or three problems, you're adding 5, 6, 7, 8, and you're lumping them all together, which becomes this black hole of like, oh, like I don't even know where to get started because it's overwhelming. So my friend gave me this vision, this analogy that I can use that's called shoe boxes. So one of the answers to lumping, one of the ways to de-lump is to compartmentalize. And we've heard that word, but I'm going to give you a visual. So when you find yourself lumping, I want you to think shoe boxes. So here's the analogy. So you walk in a room and there's 100 shoe boxes, and the bottom's here and the lid's over there and the left shoe's here and the right shoe's there. And there's 100 of them. You're like, oh, I don't even know where to start. There's like freaking things all over the place, right? That's overwhelming. That's lumping. De-lumping is I walk into the room and the left and the right shoe are in the box and the lid's on top and they're stacked up in the closet. Same amount of shoe boxes, but that's not overwhelming, because by keeping them separate, now I take one shoe box down, I look at it, I fiddle around with it, I put it back on. So my wife says to me, well, that's stupid because these problems don't come at you one at a time. And I go, that is true. Some of these problems are linked together. Some of these problems are coming at you when you're not expecting it. But the more you use your shoebox, the more compartmentalized you stay, the less stress you're going to have. It's never going to be a perfect system, but by thinking in terms of compartmentalization, going, hey, okay, I got to get my daughter. That's not overwhelming. Hey, I got to go pick up my friend. That's not overwhelming. Hey, I got to go get this for my car. That's not overwhelming. It's when you let them all run together that you wake up going, I'm exhausted. And you're like, no. So compartmentalize. That's certainly one of the answers.
That makes a lot of sense. It kind of sounds like chunking in a way, sort of like the
Yes.
military adage about just doing the next thing. You know, you just keep doing the next thing and you get that done, whether it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever activity, you get that done and things move on. You don't worry about what's going to happen, 3 days from now or 3 weeks from now. You're just moving through it. Is that kind of what you're saying?
That is certainly a one part, but it's a component of it, right? And what I see is that, and this is what I see, and again, I'm generalizing, that men, their brains are more like uni-focused. So for compartmentalization for guys is a little bit easier because they tend to only think in one way, whereas women tend to be more broad. So I was listening to a comedian, and here's what she said. She goes, guys, learn this. She goes, for every sentence that comes out of my mouth, there's 15 that went in my head. And for women, she goes, listen to this. For guys, for every sentence that comes out, there's a half a thought that was in their head. And you're like, yeah, pretty much, right? So what I found is that compartmentalization is actually easier for guys just because of the way the brain's set up, but it's certainly achievable by women. And what they have to do is chunk. I have a form that they can fill out to go, hey, what's my problem? What can I do about it? What if it doesn't go right? Sometimes by writing things down, that is what makes it compartmentalized, because now, okay, I got problem number one and problem number two and problem number three, and I can work on any one of these problems. And when it's written down, I only have to do it once, because that's where people get into trouble is they go over and over and over and over and over again. And that's where they get into trouble because they're using up all this energy, which is what makes them feel exhausted. So if it's written down, well, then you've done it once, took a little more effort, but you only had to do it once.
So you're recommending writing these down, and then it takes these to-dos out of our working memory. It puts it down on paper so we don't have to ruminate over it. And you talked about worrying efficiently. How do you go about prioritizing or sequencing those shoe boxes? Which shoe box do you put in order first? Do you offer any tips around that?
Yeah, well, so worry is one of these interesting things, right? So I had patients say they worry too much, and I'm like, okay, so tell me what worry is. And they're like, oh, I got this. And then they would fumble around because it's like it's not the easiest thing to define. And I go, well, if you can't define it, how are you going to fix it? So I had to come up with this concrete definition. So here's my definition. We have this incredible skill of envisioning the future. Amazing. What? But we were using that skill to focus on all the bad things that can happen. And then we have a fear reaction right now that's some concept that we thought of. So that's worry. So the problem with worry then is you're focusing on all the bad things, which makes you feel crappy right now. So we do have the ability to have choice. So we can choose to focus on bad things that could happen, which is what happens. So when I did a seminar and I was like, okay, write down all the things that can go wrong. And people are like, okay, now write down all the things that can go right. And they're like, no, that's not right. So we've been so habit formed into focusing on all the bad things that can happen that we forget, hey, good things can happen too. So I use myself as an example. When I was writing my book, I could have gone and said, oh, who's going to read this book? It's never going to get written. Even if it gets written, it's not going to help anybody, blah, blah, blah. How's that make you feel? That makes you feel crappy, right? But I got, oh, no, I'm going to be in the Oprah show. And then she retired. And I'm like, all right, so I'm going to be on the Ellen show. And then she retired. I'm like, dang, come on, seriously, right? So, so my new goal is to be on the Clarkson show. There we're going for that, right? But by being optimistic, then I was like, oh, let's get this book done because this is going to be good and help people, right? So I focused on the optimistic part, and I call it realistic optimism. So you can't just be pie-eyed, rose-colored glasses. You got to be realistic about it. So I didn't quit being a doctor because I know that most authors do not make a living out of their books, right? So what I figured out was, okay, I'm going to be optimistic that the book's going to be successful, but I'm going to be realistic and keep doing my job as a doctor until I'm at some point where I can retire, and then I can shift my focus all to that book. So you have to be realistic about it. And then the tool to help people then get realistic and organized, because what I find the same thing with being overwhelmed is people worry over and over and over and over again. So I have this worry organizer where I go, okay, what is it that you're worried about? Why are you worried about it? How likely is it to happen? How bad would it be if it did happen? And then the last two columns are like, well, what can I do to make it not happen? And what can I do if it does happen? So now you're writing all this stuff out and you're like, wait, let me show this to my doctor and go, wait, is that the right number? Is there something else I could do? Let me show it to my friend who's been through this. What did she do that she, when this problem came up, right? So now you have this concrete list of things, and now you can look at it and go, hey, I'm going to take this one first and that one second and this one eighth and whatever. Or I can't fix this, so we're just going to get rid of this problem because it's not fixable. And that's one of the things that helps people get less overwhelmed is they give up this idea that I'm going to fix it, right?
So that's an important mindset shift that probably takes some time and some practice. And you offer these recommendations in your books. You talk about them, you work with your clients. For listeners to this episode, what are some basic, reasonable steps that they can take today in order to start affecting this shift and being more efficient with their worry?
Mhm. So remember I said I was going to give you the one line, right? So here's the line. I'm going to get rid of half your stress with one line. So your stresses are a 10. Everybody else's stresses are a 5. Okay. So that doesn't mean that everybody else's stresses are a 0. That doesn't mean you stop paying attention to them. But what it does mean is your stresses are important, more important to you, and you put 10 energy into every problem that you have. But everybody else's problems, you help them out, you do what you can, but that's their problem. But I see way too many times people take on other stresses as their own. So as a doctor, what I had to learn was everybody that comes to me is coming with a problem. So if I took on their problem as if it was mine, I would be overwhelmed by lunchtime. So I had to learn, and here's the word that I use, I had to build an empathy wall. So my empathy wall is thick enough that the things that are coming to me, people dying, people getting sick, people getting diagnosed with cancer, people getting diagnosed with addiction, I couldn't fall apart every time they came in because these are some sad stories. These are some stories that make people, not happy. So I had to learn, like, okay, I can't be falling apart every time somebody comes in with a horrible story. And I see this with women because they tend to share their stresses. They're like, and I use the word, they're like a sponge, right? So as sponges, we hang on a second. Sorry. So as sponges, we go to a gathering and we're sharing our stresses with everybody. Like, oh, I can't believe this happened, blah, blah, blah. And so we're sponges. And so we're just kind of sucking in some of their stress. But what happens is we get oversaturated because we're taking on their stress as if they're ours. So their 10 stress becomes our 10 stress. Well, like you got 5 friends with 10 stresses plus your own 10 stresses. You're a sponge. You start leaking. You get oversaturated. And you're not leaking. You're like, oh, I'm leaking. And then somebody says, oh, but man, I got this. And you're like, oh, okay. And you take it on. And you're like, oh, now you're leaking some more. You're like, oh, I'm still leaking. So by saying my stresses are a 10 and yours are a 5, then I go, oh, okay. Look, I got all my, I'm saturated right now, so I can't handle anymore right now. Give me a second. Let me deal with some of my stresses, and then maybe I can come back and help you tomorrow. But what I realized as a doctor, my job was not to fix people. Like we get way too into this. We got to fix people. And you're going, what do you mean fix them? Like, so I realized like I had a patient that came in and her daughter was having an addiction problem. Her son had ADD and her husband was very critical. And she's like, I gotta fix these things because this is driving me crazy. I'm like, you can't fix them. You can't fix them. The best that you can do is to give them your advice, to guide them in the right direction. You can get better at giving advice. You can read a book and figure out a better way to do it, or maybe a different protocol. You can give them hope. You can get better at persuading them, but you can't make them do anything. You can't get rid of your son's ADD. You can't get rid of your daughter's addiction. You can't make your husband a nice guy. All you can do is the best you can do. And so what I realized was that a lot of people get overwhelmed with other people's stresses because they're trying to fix their stress. And I go, no, stop using that as your measuring stick. Your measuring stick is, did I do everything I could with the energy that I have available to help that person? And if you did that, then no matter what the outcome was, then you did your job and you succeeded, right? So too many people go, oh, I did all the stuff and they're still an addict. I did all the stuff and they still have ADD. I did all the stuff and he's still not nice to me. So I failed. So then what happens is when someone comes along and says, hey, I need your help, you're like, because now you're risking failure. And who wants to fail? Like that doesn't do anything good for you. But if you go, okay, I'm going to do the best I can to help you out, and then it's your job to do that, then I can succeed even if things don't go as well as I would like, which makes a huge difference. And I found that, like I was reading this book on worry, and the guy said that people actually think worrying is a sign that you care. And so when I'm like, my wife is more emotional than I am, I'm going to say, and she worries more than I do. So when we're faced with a problem, she's worried, she's crying herself to sleep, she's not eating, she's distraught. And I'm sitting there calmly, with a pencil and paper trying to figure out the problem, right? And she's like, what the hell? Why do you get to just sit around and not do anything? And I'm like, no, I am doing something. I'm solving this problem. I'm writing down the things that we can do, the things that we should avoid, the things that, if this goes wrong, here's what we're going to do. I don't need worry, which equates to fear, to make that happen. And here's what I've learned when I read this book on the brain, that the thinking part of our brain literally gets shut off when we're in fear. And the more fear you have, the more it gets shut off. So when people are having a panic attack, thinking isn't part of the equation. They're not going, oh, why am I having this panic? No, they're literally freaking out. So your thinking part of your brain is shut off. So then your problem solving skills, which comes from your thinking part of your brain, not working so good. So the more worry you have, the less able you are to solve the problem that's in front of you. So instead of seeing worrying as, oh, that means I'm caring, see worry as a fear reaction that's actually making it harder for you to care and solve the problem because that's really what people are looking for. And that's what you're trying to offer as a way to fix it. So when I say I'm not worried, what I'm saying is I'm not going to try to solve this problem with fear. I'm going to try to solve a problem with the information that I have available to me. I'm going to read a book to help him out. I'm going to listen to a podcast and go, oh, check that out. Right. So as I get more and more information, so I finished just reading this book on victimhood, right? And it's like this actually is a really good model to use to help people get from being a victim to being what they call a creator. And you're like, it gives people an insight so that they can solve the problem. I didn't need to be worried and freaking out, and that didn't show I was caring. It just meant I got some more information. But I can't make that person better. Like if I go, hey, do this, like I would say, like my brother smokes cigarettes, and I go, dude, you need to stop smoking. And I hear, here's the way you can do it, and here's this, and do that, and blah, 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 blah. Does that mean he stopped smoking? No, that's on him. But does that mean if he keeps smoking that I failed? No. It just means that I did all the things that I could do. Now, can I get better? Yeah, maybe I'll find something. I was like, dude, you're not a victim. Or you're like, hey, let's try this other technique. Or, right, I learned how to do hypnosis and neurolinguistic programming because I found that that helped people who had addiction problems because a lot of times their addiction was stemming from the fact that they had a post-traumatic stress disorder. And if I could help them through that, then guess what? Their addiction disappeared. So here's the line, right? Your stresses are a 10, everybody else's are a 5.
That point you made about worrying as a way of caring or showing that we're caring, that's really important. And I think a lot of people probably do that. Moms probably do that, especially, or parents in general. And so the importance of an empathy wall seems pretty clear. How do you actually do that, though? How do you put down the worry for someone else whose problems you cannot necessarily fix? And in the moment, cognitively, mindfully shift that focus back to your own problem solving.
Mhm. Well, so the other half of that empathy wall, though, and this is what I forgot to say, is like the empathy wall has to be thick enough that you can handle the stresses that are coming at you, but it has to be thin enough that you can have empathy. So what I learned as a physician was I could see somebody and go, hey, I hear that you have, hey, we just found out that you had cancer. And you're like, I can put myself to empathy then is I'm putting myself in their position. So if I'm a patient and the doctor comes to me and says, hey, I think you have cancer, I'm going, man, how would I react to that? Right. And then I use that and go, okay, so given my reaction, I'm going to put myself in that person's position and go, man, if I was faced with that, how would I do that? And then go from there. So now that I'm in their side, so I do this with addictions all the time. Too much in our addiction world, we say, "Oh, I'm the treater, and you're the patient. You're down there. You better do everything I say, or else you're going to get in trouble." No, I put myself down in their position, going, "Hey, you're really stressed out. You found something that worked, and but now it's causing problems, and you need to get off, right?" I've been there. Like I was trying to lose weight, and my car just drove me into Wawa, and I got chocolate donuts, right? It's like, so I know where you're coming from, so I'm going to put myself in your position and work from there. So the empathy wall has to be thick enough to protect you, but thin enough that you can still be empathetic. But the way to thicken it up is to go, I'm going to try and help you, and I'm going to do the best that I can, but I'm not risking failure. Because if I'm risking failure, well, now that's a whole big different thing. I'm not the one that has the addiction. You're the one that has the addiction. So I'm going to do everything I can to help you, but you're the one that has the addiction, not me. You're the one that got, arrested. You're the one that overdosed yesterday. You're the right. That's you, not me. So that means, if I had an addiction problem, now it's a 10. But your addiction problem, that's a 5. So I'm going to do everything I can to help you, but that's your problem, not mine. So I can help you though. Like if like one of my kids gets into trouble and they get $1,000 fine and they don't have $1,000, now I get to choose. Like that's not my fine, that's your fine. Now it turns out I might have some extra money, so I can give you $1,000, or maybe today I just had to pay my mortgage, so I don't have $1,000. That's on you, not me.
That separation seems clearly important. It has to be there. Those boundaries between what you own and what somebody else owns. Otherwise, you get that You get that messy or invisible or lack of a boundary where you're involved more in other people's stuff and they're involved in yours, and it's very confusing. So that makes a lot of sense. Can you talk a little bit about the book that you've written and some of the way that you provide readers specific guidance around these themes that you're discussing?
Yeah, so this was the first book, right? So the first book said, here's the destination, here's your happy place. And it's made up of gratitude and fulfillment and this thing I call cash, which is like connected and accepted and feeling safe and having hope. So that defines where your happy place is, which is something you can keep with you all the time. Like we were talking about gratitude, and it's like, dude, there is so much in our world that we have to be grateful for that we tend to overlook, just like having indoor toilets and having running water. What? Like German kings didn't have that, right? So when you understand where you're trying to get to, then you're like, okay, well, I can get there, but these stresses are keeping me from getting there. And when you see these stresses as side effects to our skills, the same skills that are making us successful are the same skills that are causing these problems. You can't get rid of the skills. So now you just got to get rid of the side effects or minimize them. So then I wrote about worry and guilt and regret and low self-esteem and being overwhelmed. So then I try to give very specific tools. Once I've defined what the problem is, like, okay, so being overwhelmed is I can handle more than one problem at a time. What? My dog does not know how to do that. She has one problem. I'm hungry, lure some food. I need to go to the bathroom, let me out the door. There's a man at the door, I'm barking like crazy until he goes away. That's it. So they don't get overwhelmed because they can only do one thing at a time. Humans have this amazing ability that we can handle a bunch of problems all at the same time, which then has the side effect that you can get overwhelmed with it. So rather than giving up the skill of being able to handle more than one thing at a time, let's figure out a way to get rid of the side effect of being overwhelmed with it. So that's what this one's about. Then the next bunch are going to be called Highway to Your Happy Place, mile marker 2 and 3 and 4. And they're just going to handle other stresses, like grieving is one in particular that I'm going to talk about, and suicide ideation, how to communicate, these kinds of things. These are all the stresses that we feel. And there's very specific answers when you see them as side effects to the skills that you have. So when you go, I can't get rid of the skill of envision the future, it's awesome to say, well, just live for today. That's a great thing. But I want people to be able to live in all three tenses of their life, the past, the present, and the future, and be comfortable in all of them. And the only way to do that is to understand what these skills are that we have and how they get messed up at the same time.
That's great. I want to go back and plug your first book. What is the title of it, and where can
So
listeners find
Highway
it?
to Your Happy Place, a roadmap to less stress.
Very
Yeah, that's
good.
good,
And
right? Won a bunch of awards. How nice is that, right? In fact, I was just in Portugal and I was given a lifetime achievement award in business from the it's called the Stevie. So I had to go, it's like I tell my friends I have to go to Portugal to get this. And they're like, oh, it's really sad, right? But here's the cool thing, right? All those awards mean nothing if I don't help somebody on your podcast today, right? The awards aren't for me. The awards are to say, hey, listen to what I got to say because somebody else thinks that it's pretty good too.
I'll be sure to put a link to that book in the show notes. And then for listeners who want to find out more about you and what you're doing, because I know you have podcasts and workshops and seminars and lots of other things going on, or if they want to connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's called thelessstressdoc.com. And on that website, there's actually a chapter on worry that they can download for free. And then it has a link to an online course that I have. And what I found was that people, reading, some people like to read books. Some people like to read the audiobook. So that's out there too. Not reading, but listen to the audiobook. But on there is an online course and it's chunked down into like 15-minute segments. So they could just pop it in as they're driving to work and listen to 15 minutes of it. And then the next day, listen to something else. And it lists kind of all the stresses that are in that book, talks about the happy place. So I'm just trying to get the information in people in some way, because again, I don't want people to resign themselves to being stressed out the rest of their life. There is a way out.
All good stuff. And we just touched on a few. The rest are in your book and in your forthcoming books. So this is super helpful, especially as the holidays approach. So is there anything else you want to talk about before we sign off?
Oh, well, there's a whole bunch of things we can talk about. So we're going to have to do this again sometime.
I would love to. I would love to have you back on. Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Gary Sprouse, the Less Stress Doc. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
That's it from us today. As always, you can find more information as well as resources on our website, individualmatters.org. We We hope you'll join us at the next podcast, where we'll continue to explore topics around successful living, learning and education, and child development, and share ways to help you live a more positive and fulfilling life.
The preceding information is not intended to provide or serve as medical, clinical, or educational advice. Individual Matters is not responsible for the accuracy of guest statements. All information should be validated independently. Please consult with your doctor, mental health provider, attorney, or other appropriate professionals before making any personal decisions for yourself or those in your care.